Alright guys, what's up? Today we're doing another tier list. We are doing Ancient Gears. This is another hotly requested one. Tons of people really wanted Ancient Gears. It's a GX archetype that a lot of people like. It's one of the very fun OTK archetypes available in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it was played by, of course, Mr. Crowler.
I think it was Dr. Crowler, actually.
Doctor? Are you serious?
Yeah, you have to respect that, man.
He got beat by a kid. Who cares?
He was the main character, so it's alright.
That's fine. He got beat by Pegasus. But I mean, listen,
that's Pegasus, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
All right. So the point is, we're doing this deck. This deck has a ton of cards. A lot of them are absolutely terrible. They are unplayable garbage, and a lot of them are actually pretty good. So this is going to be a nice long list, all types of different stuff to review here. But without further ado, if you enjoyed this, subscribe. And if you have any other ideas for tier lists, mention in the comment section below. But enough of the commercials. Let's get to the video. We have Ancient Gear Beast. Right off the bat, we're starting off with a... Yeah, it's not that unplayable. C tier. This card is not very good. Basically, what it does is it's a 1 tribute monster. Actually, it's actually not. I rated it too high. It's a D tier. It can't be special summoned, which is its main drawback. But basically, what it does is... if it attacks your opponent, they can't activate spawn trap cards during the battle phase. But in addition to that, if it destroys a monster by battle, that monster can't activate its monster effect. Which, that's something that is relevant. That was relevant back in like 2005 when this card came out in Lost Millennium. But that effect is just totally not relevant today. I don't know why you would even need to do it. There's not a lot of like battle phase searchers, battle phase summoning going on, so kind of an irrelevant effect. Next is the Ancient Gear Ballista. This card's an S tier card. It's one of the newest cards of the entire archetype. It's actually really good. On link summon, it gets to search you in a Gear Town, which is your field spell. It's a hugely important card.
Or an Ancient Gear monster.
Or an Ancient Gear monster. Yeah, if you have the Gear Town already, beautiful. You can search an Ancient Gear monster. So both effects are very good. On top of that, it has an effect to destroy a card that you control as a spell trap card that you control, and then target a monster your opponent controls, make that monster 0, and then of course resolve the card and destroy your own spell card, which can just destroy the Gear Town that you just searched and then summon more Ancient Gear monsters from your deck. Both effects are very good.
And what's also really good about him is that he only takes 2 Earth machines, so he's actually like all the Ancient Gears are Earth machines, but he's actually generic, so you can actually
Chaos.
Let's calm down. But you can actually run things like Urgent Schedule or like other like train kind of engines with Earth machines just to get him out easier. And he's also he's also an Ancient Gear in name. So even though you're using these cards that aren't Ancient Gears, you're getting another Ancient Gear for like fusions and whatnot. So he helps out in like more ways than just that search and that pop. Moving on, we have Ultimate
Ancient Gear Golem. Next we have Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. I'd say this card is probably like a either high C or low B. Probably put it low B. This card basically requires first fusion materials and an Ancient Gear Golem, specifically the Ancient Gear Golem, and 2 Ancient Gear monsters. And it basically just powers up the Ancient Gear Golem, but it adds the ability to float to him. So basically what it does is same exact thing as regular Ancient Gear Golem. It does piercing. If you attack your opponent, they can't activate spawn trap cards. And then if it gets destroyed, you can special summon an Ancient Gear Golem from your graveyard, ignoring summoning conditions. And that part is important because the ignoring summoning conditions part is extremely important because obviously the regular Ancient Gear Golem cannot be special summoned. So that's very important. Next is the Ancient Gear, Ancient Gear Frame?
Yeah.
This card is actually fairly decent. I'd say the higher end of B tier. It's yeah. You want to say this one?
Yeah, I really like the design of it. Actually, it reminds me of like Cyber Dragons, the way they have like the mini versions as they build up, because he's just the frame of the Ancient Gear Golem.
Yeah.
But the actual effect, you can discard any card, and then add an Ancient Gear Golem or spell / trap that specifically has him in the name. So it's like you can add like the fusion or whatnot, or things that like lets you summon him, ignoring like summoning conditions and whatnot. And he's all right, but the main thing is that you can add the
Ancient Gear Fusion.
Yeah, the Ancient Gear Fusion, and he has this other cool
effect that never goes
floating
off.
effect. Yeah, it'll never happen, but like there's gonna be someone who won't read it, and they'll just like pop it with something, or something stupid will happen, and he can summon up to three Ancient Gear Golems or Ancient Gear Ultimate Pounds from your hand, ignoring the summoning conditions, because neither of those can actually be special summoned, which is really cool. But it's like, not only does someone have to pop it, but you have to have like up to 3 of them in your hand. So it's like, it's a really cool effect, but it'll never go off. But the first effect is solid enough, so he's definitely. What did you put him in? High beat? Yeah, he's definitely worth it.
He's pretty good. Next this is a C tier. It's one of the best cards in the deck. This is the Ancient Gear.
A C tier, best card in the deck.
Oh, S tier, S tier, S tier. This is the Ancient Gear Wyvern. This card's extremely good. On normal or special summon, hard ones per turn, this card can search any Ancient Gear card. That is extremely good. It literally searches every single card that I'm going to read you in this entire list. It activates on normal or special summon, which makes it extremely good. The only restriction on this card is that for the rest of the turn after you activate this effect, you can't set. That's probably the only issue with it. I'm not a huge fan of that restriction. I don't like it at all. Like it makes going first just that much more difficult in this deck for absolutely no reason, because I don't know why they did this, especially since like there's archetypal trap cards like Ancient Gear Return.
So you'd have to like search them, and then you can't set them.
You can't set them. You have to wait a whole turn. Like what's the?
You already have to wait a turn to activate them, and you have to wait a turn to set them too. So
yeah.
It's like,
it makes no. It really doesn't make sense that you can't set cards the turn you activate. Like I don't know why that's on there. I'm sure there's some reasonable explanation why that's the restriction for the card, but other than that, the card is like really, really, really good. Next is, I'd say this is middle of B.
It's Ancient Gear Gadget, right?
Yeah, Ancient Gear Gadget. This card's pretty good. So basically, it has an effect where on activation, it can do one of two things. You can declare a gadget, and then this card becomes that color of gadget. So you could say like, okay, this is green gadget or gold gadget, and then it becomes that gadget. That part is important because it basically, some of the Ancient Gears allow you to, through tribute summoning, get additional effects. So if you, like, for example, tributed a green gadget to summon a certain gadget monster, it'll gain like a certain effect, like it'll inflict 600 or something like that. But that's why it's important for that. And then also you can declare either monster spell or trap, and then based on what you declare, your opponent can't activate those during the battle phase, which can help fill some of the holes, because a lot of the Ancient Gear monsters prevent your opponent from activating spells and traps during the battle phase, but not monsters, so it can kind of close the gap on whatever you don't have, basically. But most importantly, this is a card that you can add off of Ancient Gear Box, which is right here. So it's basically like a free card to search. Ancient Gear Frame and Ancient Gear Gadget are two monsters that are very important to play with the Ancient Gear Box, because basically you add it for free. Next is Ancient Gear Engineer. This card, this is the level 5 Earth one.
Really bad.
He's really bad. He's an F tier. He's like terrible. So he's. Go ahead. You can go ahead.
I don't want you to have the nightmares about him again. So he's a level 5, 1500 attack. We can just stop right there, and you already.
Yeah, he's already terrible.
Yeah, but he negates any traps that target him, which is like, I don't know what trap you'd use to target a 1500 5-star tribute, but it's just really bad. He has the same like spell and trap, like they can't activate spells and traps when he's attacking, but what are you gonna attack? And then if he attacks, you can pop a spell or trap
that your opponent controls.
Yeah, that your opponent controls, which is like, it's not like a bad effect, but Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon does all that, but just so much better, because he pops any spell or trap,
including your own.
Yeah, so you can pop your own, which sounds dumb, but all the spells want to be popped because they have floating effects into your big monsters. So you pop your own thing, and you end up getting another summon out of it. But this guy, he's just counterproductive. Well, not counterproductive. He just doesn't move you forward enough, and he's just to summon him, you're moving backwards. It's just all around just terrible.
He's atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next we've got Ancient Gear Factory. This is another F tier. This card is absolutely terrible. Basically, what you do is you activate it, then you reveal an Ancient Gear monster from your hand.
Who's 5 or higher?
Yeah, whose level is 5 or higher. And then you can banish Ancient Gear monsters from your graveyard to reduce the... Basically, you have to banish levels from your graveyard of double the one that you revealed in your hand. Combined levels of double the one you revealed in your hand, then you can normal summon it without tributing.
So basically, if you reveal like the Reactor, who's a level 9, you'd have to banish like 2 reactors from the graveyard.
Yeah, which is outrageous.
It's like ritual summoning, but with like double the cost.
Yeah, and then you just summon it from your hand, so you're even going -1 off the card. Like it's so bad. And then what's worst is a lot of the if you want to take the tribute summoning route in this deck, which I don't recommend because tribute summoning is the worst way to play the deck. It's better to just special summon and fusion summon. But if you were to take the tribute summoning route, you want to tribute the Ancient Gears and the Gadget monster so you can get additional effects anyway. You don't want to not tribute. So it's kind of dumb regardless. Next is Ancient Gear.
No, it's actually not Ancient Gear. It's actually just Spell Gear.
Oh, Spell Gear. This is another pretty atrocious card. It's another F tier. Basically, you send 3 Ancient Gear monsters you control to the graveyard.
Well, I think it's just Ancient Gear cards.
Oh, Ancient Gear cards. I guess you can send the continuous spells, but not that you would want to. But you can send them to the graveyard to special summon an Ancient Gear Golem from your hand and deck, ignoring summoning conditions, which that part is really good. But then you cannot summon monsters, normal summon or set monsters, right?
Mm-hmm. Until the end of the next turn.
Yeah, until the end of the next turn, which is like absolutely outrageous.
And it also destroys all monsters you control except for Ancient Gear Golems.
Yeah, so you're going to lose all the monsters even if you don't send them to the graveyard.
So you get stuck with just 2 Ancient Gear Golems. You can't summon you can't normal summon or set until the end of your next turn. So you basically you're playing off of 2 Ancient Gear Golems, and that's literally it.
Unless you have like an Ancient Gear fusion in your hand, in which case you can fusion summon with that. But again,
but if you have an Ancient Gear fusion in your hand, you just fusion. You wouldn't even use this.
You wouldn't even use this piece of garbage. It's a mess. You don't use that card.
And not only I don't know if you said it already, but not only do you need to have this in your hand, which isn't searchable because it's not. Well, actually, it is because it has Ancient Gear Golem in the name. But it's still pretty specific, so you have to use frame. Yeah. But you have to have 3 Ancient Gear cards in your hand and an Ancient Gear
on the
Golem.
field. Cause
oh, you control.
Yeah, you have to have them on the field. So
you have to get 3 Ancient Gear face up on the field. You have to have this in your hand, and you have to have a Golem in the hand.
It's asking for too much.
It's a 5-card combo.
Yeah, it's like a 5-card. It's too bad. Next is Ancient Gear. This card is like top of D tier. Basically, all it does is let you special summon it if you control an Ancient Gear monster. It honestly doesn't advance the strategy all that much.
Oh, I thought you just didn't finish the name. But
no,
it's actually just Ancient Gear.
Yeah, it is just Ancient Gear. It doesn't advance the strategy like it's monster spam, but the deck doesn't really need monster spam because mostly you're fusing out of your hand anyway. So you really don't need to summon this. If you're playing, actually, I'll put this in C tier. If you're playing like the
Link 2.
Well,
you're definitely playing the Link 2. That's the main reason why you would use it.
You know, if you're playing the tribute summon variant of the deck, maybe this could help. Because it can get you a free monster on board and you contribute it. But like I said, the tribute summon variant of the deck is just not great. The better version is the fusion / special summoning variant of the deck.
What's cool about it is that it's not once per turn. Like the special summon is not once per turn. So if there's some crazy, weird, wacky way to loop it and then make like a crazy board because of it,
but it's from hand.
Go off. Yeah.
It's from hand. He only has 100 attack and instant attack position. It's got its issues. And he doesn't have like all of the battle protection of all of these other ones where they attack and can't do battle. Next is Ancient Gear Tank. This is another like just bad card. You wouldn't want to play it. All it does is just give an Ancient Gear monster 600 attack. And
then when it's destroyed, it does 600 burn.
Yeah. Again, this deck has a combination. This deck has a lot of. They went a lot of different directions with this deck. This deck is a lot like Red Eyes, where they just every once in a while they just come out with this deck and they just completely change what it's supposed to do. Like this deck at first started as a deck where your opponent cannot. It's a deck where all of the monsters can't be special summoned, but if it attacks, your opponent can't activate spell and trap cards. That's where the deck started.
And then piercing and stuff like that.
Yeah, piercing. Then the deck became that had all these burn elements. Then it was revolved around tribute summoning. Then it involved the gadget monsters. After that, it had one Gemini monster.
It was tributing the gadget monsters.
Yeah, tributing the gadget monsters. Then it had one Gemini monster. Then it became a deck all about fusion summoning.
And OTKing.
OTKing. Then it became a deck about destroying your own spell and trap cards. It's just, this deck just, it's almost like they just keep picking new directions for this deck to go rather than just sticking with one idea, which kind of makes the deck suffer in certain ways. Next is the Ancient Gear, was it Megaton?
Yeah, that's the big, well, not the big fusion, but like big in artwork.
Yeah, this is one of the bigger fusions. It's basically summoned off of Ancient Gear Fusion is usually the easiest way to summon this. But it was like 3 Ancient Gear monsters to summon this.
He's generic and pretty simple to summon, which makes him really cool.
Yeah, 3 Ancient Gear monsters. And then he gains additional attacks for every Ancient Gear, every Ancient Gear Golem or Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound that you used for its fusion summon. Also, your opponent can activate spawn trap cards, which is like the usual Ancient Gear effects. And then if this card's destroyed, you float into the other Ancient Gear monster right here, the other Ancient Gear fusion.
The ultimate, yeah.
Yeah, ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. So if this is destroyed, it floats into this. If this is destroyed, it floats into the Ancient Gear Golem, the regular one. So pretty decent there. Gear Town is a really good card. This is definitely an S tier card. Basically what this card does is all of the Ancient Gear monsters that you would tribute summon are 1 less tribute. Again, don't take the tribute summon route. I'm warning you, but if you want to, that's what it does. Also, the important effect is that when this card is destroyed you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your deck. That effect is really, really good. Next is Ancient Gear Knight. This card is buns.
Yeah, this is the Gemini you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. I absolutely hate Gemini monsters.
The only slightly cool thing about him is that he's a normal summon that's 1800.
Yeah, but that's Wyvern is 1800 and he has a better effect.
Yeah. Oh, he is? I didn't realize he was 18.
Yeah, Wyvern is 18. He's 10,000 times better.
He's so bad because you have to normal summon him, and then as Gemini's work, you have to summon him again to get the effect to make your opponent not be able to activate or prevent your opponent from activating spells and traps when he attacks. Which everyone has that. Even the bad ones.
Every single Ancient Gear stops your opponent of activating stuff in the battle phase, like spell and trap cards during the battle phase. Everything does that already. So it doesn't even, like, you have to wait a whole turn just to do something that every other card in the deck already does. And again, Wyvern does that, and Wyvern searches. So this card is just absolutely trash. Next is Ancient Gear Fist. This is another
equip.
Yeah, equip spell. This one is really bad too. Oh my god, this is actually worse than the other one. So basically, the only thing that this card does, probably something like down here. Basically, what this card does is if you equip it to your Ancient Gear monster, and then when that Ancient Gear monster battles, if the monster that you battled is not destroyed by battle, you can basically blow up that monster. Now, what that means is if the monster you attacked was bigger than your monster and your monster got destroyed, that effect doesn't activate because this card's no longer on the field. This only counts for things like Spirit Reaper and Marshmallow and Dogmatica Ecclesia, like stuff like that. That's the only cards that would possibly work on. It's just so irrelevant to the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Today. No one's playing Marshmallow. No one's playing anything like that. So there's really no point to even run anything like that.
And even though they are playing, even if they are playing Ecclesia, you have Wyvern and stuff like that.
And you do piercing.
Oh yeah, you do piercing. So
you do piercing, so she could stay in defense mode.
Yeah, you can attack multiple times some of the monsters. So it's like
you can attack her defense position. She's like what, 15 defense?
Maybe even less.
Maybe even less under certain circumstances. Yeah, this card's just absolutely terrible. There's no point to play it. Hound. This card's good. This card's an A tier card.
Which one is that? Ultimate
Hound.
Pound?
Oh. No, Hound, not Pound. No, this is Ancient Gear Hound. This card's really good. On summon, inflict 600. Again, I don't know what the sudden obsession with infliction is, but it 6. It's not bad. It's free damage, right? We're not going to complain because at least the inflicting damage is on a good card. But its good effect is that you can use itself to fusion summon an Ancient Gear monster, so you don't have to.
Well, it works as polymerization.
Yeah.
But you can also use himself.
Yeah, so you can use himself. You don't need polymerization, but basically, he counts as polymerization and an Ancient Gear monster for a fusion, which is really good. That's probably his best thing. And then you can just fusion summon using monsters in your hand and field. Yeah, it's a really good card. We've got Ancient Gear Catapult. This is another S tier card. This is like one of your main sort of combo starters. You could probably put this at bottom of S or top of A. It's really up to you. You do want to see this in your hand. I'd say the only major drawback to this card is that the major drawback to this card is that you have to control no monsters to activate it, which is really frustrating. But when this card is activated, you can destroy a card that you control, a spawn trap card that you control, and then you can special summon, ignoring summoning conditions, an Ancient Gear monster from your deck. That effect is pretty good. The problem is you have to have this card in your opening hand, because like you can't search. Like you technically can search it with Wyvern, but you don't want to search it with Wyvern because if you search it with Wyvern, you have a monster on the field. So now you can't even activate this card. The second effect is also pretty good, which is you can banish this card from the graveyard, and then you can destroy a card that you control, and then special summon an Ancient Gear token. That token counts as an Ancient Gear monster in name, so that you can do all types of like fusions with it, stuff like that.
And it's
you
also
contribute it.
And it's also an Earth Machine for
for the link.
Yeah, for the link.
So it's actually a really good card. Like it's a good card. Its major drawback is that you can't control monsters to activate it. It makes it a bit frustrating. But what's awesome about it is that it does summon ignoring summoning conditions, which makes it very good. Next is Ancient Gear Explosive. You want to take this one over?
Yeah, sure. So basically this one targets an Ancient Gear monster you control, and you just destroy it and then inflict damage to your opponent for like, what was it, half?
Yeah.
Yeah, half the life points. And it's like I can see you running that to just like finish someone off. But honestly, your monsters are so big.
Yeah.
You're already doing burn. So it's like this seems very like
repetitive.
Irrelevant.
Like you're already OTKing.
You're probably OTKing already. And if you're not, they have some weird way of stopping you or whatever, and you're probably gonna do something else or just set up some kind of like board with just big monsters that are gonna be hard to beat over.
Yeah.
This just seems very counterproductive.
Yeah. Next is Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon. This card it's either top of A tier, bottom of S. This card's extremely good. Basically, this is usually what you're going to summon off of the Gear Town. But basically, what this card does is when it battles, your opponent can't activate any effects like monster spells, traps, and then when it does successfully battle, you can destroy a spawn trap card on the field, which can be a copy of Gear Town or a copy of Fortress, and then which will allow you to special summon more stuff from your deck or hand. It's very good, very, very good.
And isn't there like a weird thing with like the where like since they can't activate until the end of the damage step, but then you're popping at like still into like the damage step.
They can't ash you.
Yeah, they can't ash the Gear Town since it summons from like, or whichever one summons from the deck, which is like really cool.
Yeah.
And he's also like the main deck boss monster.
And he used to be a little bit better because you used to be able to special summon True King of all calamities with him, but I mean that ship has sailed a little bit. Next we've got Ancient Gear Reborn. This is definitely like a C tier. Here's the issue with it. The main way to get to it is Gear Town is Wyvern. Wyvern, if you use Wyvern, you can't set it. That's one of the main problems with it. But what this card does is basically during the main phase, if you control no monsters, you have to control
it's not
no
during
monsters.
the main phase. It's just
once per turn, if you control no monsters, and this is a continuous trap card. If you control no monsters, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your graveyard. And that effect is good, and then it gains 200 attack, which is sort of relevant. That effect is good and all, but the issue with this card is...
honestly, the 200 attack is so bad. They should have just did 200 burn. It would have actually fit a little bit more.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. This deck is just kind of a mess to use. Like, it doesn't have enough synergy, I'd say, with the deck. It's kind of counterproductive to even play. They really need... I can't even say they need better trap cards, because you can't set cards after Wyvern uses its effect anyway. So, it's kind of a frustrating card. Next is you could take Ancient Gear.
It's a Gadgetron Dragon.
Gadgetron Dragon.
Yeah. So when this one has the same like regular, like when it attacks, spells and traps cannot be activated until the end of the damage step. But this is like from like the tribute summoning age. I believe he's like 8 or 9. He's a pretty big one.
Yeah.
And then
there's a lot of levels. 3,000 attack.
Yeah, 3,000 attack, 2,000 defense. But what's it called? But he gains an additional effect for every different type of gadget. So if there's a green, he can attack. He can attack at defense and do piercing. If it's red, he can battle damage. You do burn. So he uses a little bit of everyone actually all together. And then yellow, you can do burn again, a little bit more burn. One of them was like destroy a monster by battle. One of them inflict damage, but it's whatever. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Honestly, he's just so bad. You have to get green, red, and yellow on the field, and you have to tribute 2 of them, and like you get 2 effects, which is cool, but it's still just not. It's just not worth it. There's just so much better things, and you could tribute the gadgets for what's his name? Reactor Dragon. Reactor Dragon can tribute a gadget, an ancient gear monster, and he's just so much better.
Yeah, he has even better effects.
Yeah.
When he's tribute summoned, but again, you don't want to tribute summon anyway. Next is Ancient Gear Chaos Giant. This card is definitely somewhere up here. This is like the real boss monster of the deck. This is also the only dark monster in the whole deck, which helps because you can use Overload Fusion. Or not is it Overload Fusion?
Yeah, Overload Fusion.
Yeah, Overload Fusion to special summon him, where you can basically banish, what are they called? You can banish machines from the graveyard to summon a dark machine. This is very good for that. Thank God it was a dark monster. But basically this card is the best, like strong, like in terms of effects, the best boss monster you have. It is totally unaffected by spawn trap cards, which is insane. And then also your opponent cannot activate monster effects during the battle phase, which again is very good. As long as you head to the battle phase, your opponent allows you, they're basically done. Also, this card attacks all of your opponent's monsters, and it does piercing. So, by far, the most insane card in the deck. What does it require? 4 Ancient Gear monsters, and it's a 4,000 attack?
45.
45 attack. I mean, that's insane.
And you could summon a lot easier with Overload Fusion, as you said earlier. But it's even crazier to power bond him out.
Oh my god.
He's 9,000 attack, he's just piercing, he's unaffected by all this stuff like he said earlier. But just 9,000 attack on top of all that, attacking everything, is just absolutely crazy. You go into the battle phase with that, it's like guaranteed game.
Yeah. You can use like Ancient Gear Fusion on it too. You can use the Hunting Hound. You can use Hunting Hound, get rid of 4 Ancient Gears, and then activate Overload Fusion, and then summon another one.
I think you're having a little bit too much fun.
No, it's a good. It's the best card in the. It's the best monster in the deck. The only drawback to it is they have to pour a lot of resources into it, and it's not really like a starter card. I'd say that's really like the biggest issue with it. It doesn't help you start your strategy. It's kind of like something that you end on rather than what you begin on. And
another thing is that he's completely unaffected by spells and traps, like he said. But monsters can only not activate their effects during the whole battle phase. But during draw, standby, main phase 1, main phase 2, end phase,
it's all fine.
Yeah, it's all
like he can die at anything.
Yeah, like
during that time.
Entis or what's his name, Fleur de Lis, like all that nonsense can just get them. They can just, if you don't OTK them, they can just summon a Dragoon and pop it easy.
Yeah,
then you lose. Yeah, there's just so many ways to out him.
Yeah, they should have made him unaffected by monsters. That would be a lot better.
Yeah.
Next is Ancient Gear Soldier. This card's another terrible card. Basically, this is basically like an Ancient Gear Golem, but he is 1,300 attack. Your opponent can't activate spawn trap cards during the battle phase, but he's only 1,300 attack, level 4. Again, I don't know why you would ever want to play this card when Wyvern is just objectively better in every single way. It's level 4 and it searches, whereas this card's level 4 and it just does less than what Wyvern does.
With a smaller attack.
Yeah, with a smaller attack. And this Wyvern is monster spells or traps. This one is just spells and traps. Next is CrossDimensional Duel. This card is probably, like, again,
the best artwork in the deck.
Yeah, it's the best artwork for sure. Like, if we zoom in, it's an insane artwork. It's like Jaden battling against Dr. Crowler.
With the Flame Wingman and the Ancient Gear Golem.
This is like the first episode all over again. It's pretty cool in that regard. So the issue with this card is it basically banishes an Ancient Gear monster on your side of the field until the end phase.
The next standby.
The next standby phase, and then it comes back with double the attack, which is a lot of attack, because a lot of these monsters have a lot of attack. But again, do you really want to... Again, trap cards are terrible in this deck because it's an OTK deck. That's number one. Number two...
You can't set sometimes.
You can't set half the time. And then you have to ask yourself, do you really want to banish one of your big monsters off your board and then bring it back?
During your opponent's turn, no less.
So
when some of them float, too.
Yeah. Do you really want to do that? Like, it doesn't really make sense. And then it has another effect where if an Ancient Gear Golem or Ultimate Pound gets targeted by a card effect, you can banish this from the graveyard.
Nah, it's if they would be destroyed.
Oh, destroyed?
Effect, yeah.
Okay. Then
which is still pretty bad because it specifically only protects Ultimate Pound and Golem.
Yeah.
So, like, your big fusions who might actually need the protection, because, like, you know, they're big enough already, so if they're attacking it to get rid of it, they might be attacking with, like, something like an Avermax or, like, a big Dragoon or something like that, and they have, like, just the one attack. So if you protect it, then you can just do something on your turn to get rid of it. But no, it's just literally only for, like, 2 guys you might not even be running that many of.
Yep. Next is Ancient Gear's Factory.
Let me see.
Yeah, it's probably Ancient Gear Factory.
I think so, yeah.
Ancient Gear Factory. This card basically just lets you target an Ancient Gear monster in your graveyard, add it back to your hand. It's really not a bad card. Number one, it can add back essentially any Ancient Gear monster back.
I think that's Workshop, actually.
That's Workshop?
Yeah, that's Workshop.
Oh, it's Workshop? So, Factory was the other one. Yeah, I got those mixed up because they have a similar artwork. Yeah, this card and the other card, they're both like screwing in an Ancient Gear head. But basically... You said Ancient Gear Workshop?
Yeah, this is the one that adds
back.
That, from the graveyard.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Number one, it can add back any Ancient Gear monster, which is like Hunting Hound, all the regular stuff. But also it can add a copy of Ancient Gear Box. An Ancient Gear Box, if it's added from your deck or from your graveyard, will let you add another Ancient Gear monster. So it's like a 3+1 every single time. But it works very well with that card. So next is Ancient Gear Box. This is probably top of A tier. It's a really good card. I always run it. Like, there's never a reason to not run it.
I think he's just crazy. He just... They made a card that helped with...
Yeah.
Oh, you just covered the microphone.
No, I was just brushing it off.
What's it called? Yeah, they made a card that, like... They made this deck have, like, so many, like, requirements for fusions. But then they made this card that just, like, tied everything together. Yeah. Because you search for a material for your fusion. And that searches for another material. It's, like... That's just made so well. It's like that's like A1 like building. Other than the whole like not being able to set and like having traps, like this they did extremely well.
Yeah, he basically gets you a free Ancient Gear monster every single time, but it has to be like 500 defense or 500. It has to be 500 attack or 500 defense specifically. But you can add the Ancient Gear frame or the Ancient Gear golden. This is called the Ancient Gear
box.
Gadget. Basically, you can add those two. Usually, the frame is the best option for you to add, but it's definitely a fairly good card. Next is Ancient Gear Fusion. I'll just put this next to the fusions. I'll be honest with you, this card is good, but it's got a few issues. Typically, I would actually rather, most of the time, run like Power Bond and
Overload Fusion.
Overload Fusion. So the reason this card is a little bit iffy is because you can, basically it's a regular like fusion spell. So it's a searchable fusion spell, which is already pretty good. You can search it off of Wyvern. If you just use its regular effect, you can fusion summon a Ancient Gear monster using monsters on your side of the field or in your hand. So regular polymerization. But if you control an Ancient Gear Golem or Ancient Gear Ultimate Pound, you can also send materials from your deck to the graveyard in order to fusion summon. That effect is really, really good, but the only way to really summon an Ancient Gear Golem or an Ancient Gear Ultimate Pound is to
catapult.
Is basically catapult. That's the only thing that ignores summoning conditions that would allow you to do that. The only other card that ignores summoning conditions is the Ancient Gear Owitzer, which is the fusion monster, and that's just extremely odd because you would have to basically summon it, enter the battle phase, crash, and then you can use it in main phase 2. And the problem is most of these things are like OTK monsters. You don't want to summon like Megaton and then in main phase 2 because he doesn't do anything in main phase 2 other than float. So yeah, definitely you want to... that's the issue with it, is that the only way to get its good effect is to have an Ancient Gear Golem, and Ancient Gear Golem isn't exactly reliable to summon. So that's its main card issue. Ancient Gear Drill.
Ancient Gear Drill is like one of my favorite cards because every time I used to look up a spell on like Wikipedia, it'd be like, this card is searchable by Dark Sage. Ancient Gear Drill used to always pop up, and then I finally took the time to read it, and it was just absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
So if you control an Ancient Gear monster, you can discard one card and then set any spell from your deck to the field, but you can't activate it that turn. That's like really cool because you can search any spell in the game,
including
and
quick
set
plays.
it. Yeah, quick play spell, so you can set something like Forbidden Droplet, something like Call by the Grave for your opponent's turn. That's really cool. However, you have to control an Ancient Gear monster. Yeah. And it is an Ancient Gear card, so you can search it. So if you normal summon, the only way to really search it, because it doesn't say Ancient Gear Golem, the only way to really search it is Wyvern. But Wyvern doesn't let you set. So you search for this, and you have the Ancient Gear monster, you probably have a discard, but you can't set it. So I don't think you can even activate it. It's just such... It's so funny because it's just so bad. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't have the synergy that it needs. Like, in theory, it's a good card, but I don't know why Wyvern had that terrible...
I think they made it just for this card. Otherwise, you just search any spell.
You search any spell, but you don't get to... Unless it's a quick play, you don't get to use it until later.
That's still kind of crazy, though.
Like, it's kind of frustrating. You don't get to use it until essentially the following turn. Should be frustrating.
But then there's like crazy quick plays, like Twin Twisters, MST, Cosmic Cyclone, things like that. Like it's pretty crazy in like theory. Or you can search for like just random stupid things like continuous spells if you're playing like True Dracos or something. There's options, but it's just really bad and it's really dumb. And it also does absolutely nothing for Ancient Gears.
Yeah. Next is Ancient Gear Fortress. This is another...
That's a good one, right?
Yeah, this is probably bottom of S.
Yeah.
This card's really good. You could take this one over. It does a lot of stuff.
How about you do the first half? Because I actually don't remember it too well.
Oh, okay. Basically what it does is your opponent can activate like monster effect. You can activate effects in response to your Ancient Gear monster's activations. It also protects them from destruction, targeting, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. On top of that, if this card is destroyed, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your hand. So again, it feeds into all of that amazing stuff where like it gets destroyed by a copy of Catapult, or it gets destroyed by Ballista Squad, the Ballista, Ancient Gear Ballista, or it gets destroyed by the graveyard effect of Catapult or something like that, and then you basically get to special summon more, or you destroy it with the Ancient Gear Dragon, which is also good. But basically it gives you a ton of protection, battle protection, activation protection. It gives you a ton of protections, but if you decide to get rid of it, it actually does benefit you, and if your opponent decides to get rid of it, it benefits you also. So it's a very good card. Next is, what's this guy? Ancient Gear Cannon, I think.
Yeah, Ancient Gear Cannon.
Yeah, Ancient Gear Cannon. This card's pretty bad.
Yeah, you contribute him and then just do 500 damage to your opponent.
Like pointless. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
And then neither player can activate traps, I think.
Yeah, during the battle phase, which again is just yeah, not good. Ancient Gear Hydra. I'll put this next to the other tribute summoned area. This is actually, what's frustrating about this is it's in one of the more recent Ancient Gear decks, and this is again just relying on that tribute summoning area of the deck, which again I'm not a huge fan of. But basically, depending on if you tribute an Ancient Gear monster or an Gadget monster, it gets different effects. If you tribute a Gadget monster, it can attack all monsters your opponent controls. If you tribute an Ancient Gear monsters, it gets the other effect, which is
if the opponent's monster was not destroyed by battle, you can banish it.
Yeah, which I don't even know why you would want to do that. But the other, I mean, I guess it can out certain things so that it doesn't target. You can out like a Dragoon, I guess. But again, tribute summoning is just not the direction you want to take with this deck. And what level is this? Like level 7?
He looks, I think it's like, yeah, I think that is 7.
Level 7, so it's 2 tributes. Yeah, you just don't want to do this. Like,
yeah.
And then it has its usual like spawn trap card stuff where.
Well, he actually has a cooler one. It's if any Ancient Gear monster you control attacks, your opponent can't activate spells or traps, which is kind of cool. Well, spells, traps, and monster effects until the end of the damage step, which is kind of cool because it adds the monster prevention onto all of them. But like, it's just not worth it still.
Yep.
Even so,
it's a mess. Next is Ancient Gear Golem. This card is only...
This guy we've been talking about all day.
Yeah. The only reason he's in B tier and not below is because they have recently just, for some reason, been fixated with building the deck completely around him rather than some of the newer Ancient Gear monsters. The issue with this card is that it can't be special summoned. That is, like, what is it called? Like the elephant in the room. Like, him not being able to be special summoned is a huge problem for just the overall consistency of the deck. It's incredibly frustrating because you have to use cards that avoid summoning conditions in order to even summon him, and that's kind of the big problems with this card. But once you get him on the field, he inflicts piercing damage. On top of that, your opponent can't activate spawn trap cards during the battle phase, which again, during the time that he came out was actually really like groundbreaking and really good, but this card's got its issues, mainly it not being able to be special summoned. If it could be special summoned, this card would be significantly higher. The deck as a whole would be significantly better if this card could be special summoned. Next is this three-headed thing, this Ancient Gear, what is this called? Like, it has the same first part as this monster right here. Basically, it has very similar effects, which based on the gadget that you tribute to summon it, it gains additional effects. Either it like inflicts life points, it
gains attack.
It gains attack. It's not great. Again, it's just one of these tribute monsters. And what level is it? 6? Yeah, it's a level 6.
Yeah.
You tribute
so
one
you can
monster.
only get one effect, which is like even worse. It's cool
really...
having 2 effects, especially when you have 2 effects that do burn. That's kind of cool. Not really in this deck, but like, I guess if you're building the tribute version, I guess it would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of like the tribute variant, and this guy is right up there. Technically, he's better than all of these other mess of cards, but I don't know, it's got its issues. Owitzer is a pretty good card. He's probably...
Howitzer's really good. He's unaffected by all card effects, and he also does burn, but he's probably the best one because he does 1,000 burn.
Yeah.
Every main phase, not every main phase because you can't do it twice in one turn, but what's it called? During the main phase, once per turn, every turn. So every turn you can do an extra 1,000. He's unaffected by other cards, like I said. So the only way to destroy it is really by battle. And when he's destroyed, he can float into any Ancient Gear monster from your deck. Ignoring the summoning conditions. So he might only be 1,000 attack and 18 defense, but that's actually like really good for like, because occasionally you are going to be forced to go first, and dropping this is like a decent way to like force them to have to like do something crazy, especially if you power bond it out. You're only going to take 1,000 burn. He's 2,000 attack, and he's unaffected by everything and floats.
And he's good too because you can even like, even if you're going second, you can make him and then crash into your opponent and then go into whatever you want. Basically from your deck, you can go into like a Reactor Dragon and all types of other things. But he's an extremely good card. He's one of the only going first options in this entire deck, unfortunately. Next is Ancient Gear Castle.
That's like this one. It gives
easier to tribute summon.
Yeah, it gives every Ancient Gear extra attack, and then, but in theory it helps you tribute summon. But like, every time you normal summon, it puts a counter on it, and you can remove a counter and then tribute summon an Ancient Gear with 1 less tribute based off of the number of counters you took off. So basically, if you want to summon something like Reactor Dragon or Ancient Gear Golem, you have to wait 2 whole turns because you have to normal summon twice. That's assuming you already have it. So you already have it, and then you normal summon. And the next turn you do it again, and then your third turn you can normal summon Golem without tributing, which is just really slow and just bad.
Yeah, not the best card. Next is Ultimate Gear Ancient Pound.
What?
Or Ancient. What is it?
You said Ultimate Gear Ancient Pound.
It's something like that.
Yeah, basically.
But he's
Ancient Gear Ultimate Pound.
He has a cool artwork, like really cool artwork. He got printed like 5 times in 1 year. Yeah, he literally is Ancient Gear Golem, but just punching you. But no, it's a really cool card. but I guess it's just it's a very weird card. Like,
Second elephant in the room.
yeah, it's another elephant in the room where it can't be special summoned.
Which in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, in old Yu-Gi-Oh, I can see why the old one cannot be special summoned. He'd be a little crazy. But in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, there's link monsters. There's nothing in defense. There's like
The deck already has structural issues to begin with, and for one of its main monsters that you need to fusion summon with to not be able to be special summoned is really, really dumb. It makes Ancient Gear Fusion that much more, like the good parts of Ancient Gear Fusion, that much more difficult to use. Also, this card, you can't even make the argument that this card is objectively better than the old Ancient Gear Golem. This card basically has an effect where it can, if it attacks, it can first of all do piercing damage, but in addition to that, if it attacks, you can discard a machine monster from your hand in order to make a second attack on a monster. That effect is obviously fairly good, but the issue is, again, getting this thing out is a problem within itself, and then now you have to be getting rid of resources in your hand to use that effect. Also, if this card is destroyed, it basically is able to float into a copy of Polymerization from your deck and an Ancient Gear monster from your graveyard. That seems good on paper. When you actually realize that the fusions that you use are things like Ancient Gear Hound, that's one of your ways of fusion summoning. Ancient Gear Fusion, Power Bond, Overload Fusion. Those are your main ways to fusion summon in this deck anyway, so you don't even fusion summon with Polymerization anyway. I don't even know why you would want to. I mean, it just adds an additional unnecessary, unsearchable brick into your deck that is only searchable through some ultra convoluted means of destroying this card. So for that reason, this card is kind of a mess. But again, it's just it's a retrain of Ancient Gear Golem that is worse than Ancient Gear Golem, because it's not even compatible with all of the effects that the old Ancient Gear Golem was. Like, for example, Ancient Gear Golem, Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, if this card is destroyed, it can only float into the regular Ancient Gear Golem and not the Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound, and that's kind of a ton of different issues within itself. But that is basically it. That is the entire tier list that we've done for Ancient Gears.
If we put the fusion, or if we put anything in S tier, it'd be like
it'd be a perfect square, right? There you go. Let's do it. Yeah, we have perfect squares. But basically, yeah, this has been the tier list for Ancient Gears. It's been very fun to make. There's a huge range of monsters. Some are really good. Some are absolutely terrible. And I'm happy that we finally got a chance to make it. If there's anything that you guys really want to see, let us know in the comment section below, and have a great day.